And now that we're talking about it, again, Miles in that universe is in 1610. In the comics, of course, his main universe is 1610, and then he goes into 616. Yeah. So in movie terms, this Miles should be transported at some point to the 616 MCU. Yeah. Even though in the movie they kind of like hinted that it was 1999, which was the designation before Far From Home first mentioned it as 616.
But what was weird and it still confuses me to today is like Far From Home mentioned it as like a nod to the comics, and then
it was just made up by Beck.
By Quentin, and then it gets mentioned again in Multiverse of Madness that Doctor Strange is Earth 616 Doctor Strange,
right?
And now, we heard it from I forgot the actress's name who plays Kamala Khan. She was getting interviewed at the red carpet, and she was like, "Oh, it's Earth 19999." And then, a few weeks later, we get the trailer of Across the Spiderverse saying, Miguel O'Hara's reference to Earth 19999. So all the Earths really confused me.
Here's I got a little theory real quick. So what if that Earth really is 199, but it was designated 616 as from another universe designating other places. So it's like it's not really 616, but this universe, when they were doing their research, kind of like how we Earth and scientists on this planet are obviously naming these planets after historical figures like Jupiter, Mars. But what if there were species on that planet, they would probably name those planets their own planet something different. And name our planet something different,
That's crazy as shit. Because there's probably like some weird life form out there that's not calling our planet Earth. They're probably calling our planet like rock. Some shit like that.
So it's like, what if the MCU really is 199, but to the universe that Strange had visited,
it's 616.
It's 616. So it's like just different, designations and stuff.
Okay. That kind of makes it make a lot more sense.
Mm-hmm.
And eventually in a Avengers movie or in Secret Wars, they're probably going to break it down just to be like, okay, so for all your guys' confusions on, what our Earth is, here it is right here. But you just hopped on that theory. We talked about a theory a little bit. I think it's what you mentioned and what I was kind of thinking. So back to going to the Insomniac Spider-Man, right? In the beginning of the Miles Morales game, Peter left.
Yep.
Is that where he went? I'm very convinced that that's where Peter went at the time because look, he went there, okay, and this is obviously before Spider-Man 2 is out.
Right.
So is that just like, hey, if you guys wanted to wonder where Peter went during Miles Morales' time in the Marvel Spider-Man game, this is where he was at. Yeah. This answers your question.
Yeah, and in the movie, they even said, like, anybody that's there was chosen to be there. So it's like, he was probably chosen to be there, and then obviously couldn't say shit to Miles.
Yeah.
Because it's supposed to be one, secret, and two, just for the people that were chosen. If you weren't chosen, you should know about it. Yeah. That's why there was a problem with
Miles being there.
The other Miles being there, the main Miles. So Miles in the video game obviously is just gonna be gullible and just believe Peter saying he's going on vacation with May or Mary. So
vacation with May.
She first of all, she fucking died. Yeah. So he's going on vacation to hell.
He's going on vacation. Yeah, he's like, you don't think Aunt May made it to heaven?
No. She was a saint. She was. But so obviously it's easy for Peter to just be like, hey, I'm going on vacation with Mary Jane. Hold it down. But my theory was, maybe he went into the Spiderverse because he was called there to help deal with the whole Spot situation.
There was something going on, like the canon, because that was the main thing that Spot was messing up was the canon. Well,
yeah, and Miles.
And Miles was messing it up too because he, Miguel O'Hara said to him, he was like, you weren't supposed to be Spider-Man,
right?
And Spot was saying that kind of before Miguel did. He was like, you kind of weren't supposed to be Spider-Man.
He wasn't. Earth 42 was supposed to be Spider-Man.
Yeah, so Earth 42's Miles.
Right. Which was the Prowler Miles at the end.
Right. So, oh, dang. So, like, it kind of sucks. It makes me feel even more bad for Miles. Like, damn, you were a mistake, Spider-Man.
That's another thing, too, where we were talking about, since we were talking about the whole how would Miles transfer, or how would a Miles be in the MCU.
Yeah.
They could also do it the way the video games did it, where they were just both in the same universe.
They were both in the same unit. Oh, okay. I was confused me a little bit.
The Spider-Man video game, obviously, there was a Miles there. He's obviously was older too, but then we have a seasoned veteran Spider-Man we're playing as. So it actually worked out. It didn't really stray too far from comics. It's still a likable Miles, and it's still a fun story with both Spider-Man in.
So now that we're kind of on the topic of like different like Miles being in the same universe and stuff like that, there was two people arguing a little bit under my comment section on TikTok, which by the way you guys should go follow. They were saying, let me see if I can pull it up. Both of them said some real shit. Like both of them had valid points. Let me see if I could find it. It was basically saying how an MCU Miles could still work without the main timeline Miles in 1610 getting transported. Like say if Sony was just like, we're just gonna keep them animated only, and then the MCU timeline will just make,
like I said, it would just work out just the way the video games did. They just introduced Miles.
The first person said introducing Miles to the MCU would be so dumb if there ain't a massive time skip between No Way Home and the Miles Morales movie. And then the other guy said, Spider-Man Homecoming took place in 2016. Uncle Aaron was talking to Miles on the phone. The MCU is currently taking place 9 years after Homecoming. And then the other guy combated him and said, by the end of Spider-Man No Way Home, Peter had just graduated high school and was about to start college, which makes him 17 to 18, so it makes absolutely zero sense. And then he came back in and said, to introduce Miles as a new Spider-Man when Peter himself has only been Spider-Man for about 2 years. But the other guy came back and he said, Tom has been Spider-Man for 5 years, not including the blip, and it makes sense for a slightly younger Miles to be about a freshman at this time, because in Earth 1610, he became a freshman. And we don't know in the MCU timeline if Miles blipped. Because if he did blip, then he would remain the same age and be relatively younger. Yeah. So it would still take a lot of time. Right. And if he didn't, he'd be older. He'd be older, which would make more sense because now we're getting in the MCU an older Peter Parker, Tom Holland. Right. So the other guy, he just wasn't accepting it. So he said, they're both children and you can't have children teaching children, which is why at least a 3 to 5 year time skip has to happen if you want to introduce him. Even so, that's if they want to introduce him soon. That's if they want to introduce him in the MCU. Also, and right. He also added to it as, even so, you can't have a teenager teaching another teenager how to be a hero himself. He says, just started the process of actually being Spider-Man without help from Tony and the other Avengers. Why put Miles under his wing now? And then the other guy's last statement said, Tom Spidey is on his own. He isn't relying on anyone. He has responsibilities himself. He may only be 18, but he's got the adult mindset. He's been humbled. What do you think? Okay, so it was a good argument. Yeah, but my thing is like, when it comes to that, again, the whole Spider-Man from the video game story can still work for a live action, but also you gotta think the next Spider-Man movie that we're getting with Tom Holland isn't until like a couple years. Like 24, that's 25. One. They never said we're getting a Miles Morales live action soon. They just said, hey, we're going to work on a Miles Morales live action movie. There's no date. There's no date. It could be as planned as after Secret Wars or during Secret Wars, which comes out in 2026. So it's like, we're not talking about the now. We're not talking about bringing in a Miles now. They're talking about bringing in Miles at some point